Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rudra and today we are continuing Python programming series. In previous lecture number 6, we studied about loops, while loop, for loop and pass, continue, pass statement, statement, break statement in loops. In today's lecture number 7, we will study about functions. What are functions, function definition, how to call a function, what are parameters and argument in a and type of functions, then recursion and scope. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's continue the lecture. So first of all, let's talk about what are functions. Function is a named reusable block of code that performs a specific task. Instead of writing the same code again and again, you write it once inside a function and simply call that function whenever you need it. Python has many built-in functions you already know, such as print, length, and range. In this lecture, you will learn how to create your own function. So we have been studying Python for past 6 lectures, and we have came across all these functions which are print, length, and range. And we will now, after studying functions, we will understand how these functions which are already built in Python work. Now in this lecture we will learn create our own functions. Functions are, you should already know from the definition what are functions, which are basically a block of code that you can use again and again as per the requirement. Okay, functions help avoid repeating the same code multiple times. Don't repeat yourself. They break a large program into smaller manageable local pieces. A function only runs when it is called. Simply defining it does nothing by itself. Python has two kinds of function: built-in function like print and user-defined function, one you create yourself. Okay, so moving forward, let's talk about what is function definition. Defining a function means writing a block of code and giving it a name using the def keyword, which is definition, which means definition. So Python knows it exists and can run it also later when called. So here we can see the syntax. We use the def keyword here, then function name, whatever the name of function you are trying to create. We'll study about parameters. Parameters are generally what functions will receive as input, then the statements inside the function, and then return value. So here is an example of function def greet. You are creating a function greet and it doesn't take any parameter, and what it does, it doesn't take any input here because it's empty, right? What is the function of this function? It is to greet. It prints hello, welcome to Python whenever you call it. Notice that running only the definition above produces no output. The function body executes only when the function is actually called. So what are the other key points? Every function definition starts with the def keyword, following by the function name and parentheses. The colon and indentation mark the start of the body for the function body, just like with loops and if statements. Function names follow the same naming rules as variables. Use lowercase words separated by underscores. Defining a function does not execute its code, it only stores the instructions for later. So in this part, in this function definition, we are only defining the function. First you define a function, then you call a function. So if you are creating a function, after creating a function, it will not run automatically. You have to call it. Then only the function will run. Now we will study about how to call a function. So how do we call a function? Calling a function means actually running it by writing its name followed by parentheses. This is the point where Python executes the statement inside the function. So here, as we have already written this function in the Python above example, like here, this is the greet function, same greet function. Now how do we call it? We created it before. How do we call it? We call it like this: greet and parenthesis. Calling the function, a function can be called again and again as per the requirements. So what will be the output? Output will be hello, welcome to Python. Hello. After only calling the function, the output will be printed. A function can be called as many times as needed from anywhere after it has been defined. Forgetting the parentheses, example writing greet instead of greet parentheses, does not run the function. It just refers to the function object itself. A function must be defined before it is called, since Python reads code from top to bottom. So before calling a function, you keep this thing in mind. Python reads from top to bottom. So if you are creating a function later in the code and you are calling that function before it, then it will not work out. Okay, so if you are calling a function, then make sure that function is already created about. If you are working in a single file, okay, if you are working in different files and you are calling from a different file, then that's a different case. But if you are working in a same file, so you should note the order of how you have written the code to for the function to work properly. Now let's talk about parameters. We have studied in the here in the syntax of the function there is something like this, which is parameter, which comes in parentheses in the name of the function after the naming of the function. So let's see what it means. Parameters are names listed inside the parentheses in the function definition. They act as a placeholder that receives value when the function is called. Now sometimes a function needs an input, sometimes a function doesn't needs an input. Like if you just want to greet, then simply you can greet without a parameter or without input, like hello everyone, like that, hello world, something like that. But you can also make it specific, like greeting the user. You can take the input of the user and then greet them. So that's when parameters come. Parameters are placeholders for the input which the function will receive. Like here name, here the name will be the placeholder. As you can see here, the function greet is created and name is the parameter. In uh, in this statement we have written we are printing the name, okay, whatever. And when we call the function, then only we will give the input. Like we wrote greet and then inside parentheses whatever the value we want to pass on to the function, we write that. So here the input is Asha, output hello Asha. Parameters are defined as part of the function's signature. They exist only inside that function. A function can have 0, 1 or many parameters separated by commas. Parameters make functions flexible and reusable, since the same function can work with different values each time it runs. So now let's talk about arguments. Moving on, let's talk about arguments. So what are arguments? Arguments are actual values passed into a function when it is called. They fill the parameter defined in the function signature. So arguments are the actual values. Like here you can see example here we have passed the name in greet. In greet function we passed Asha. That is an argument. Okay. So here we created a function which is add, which will do addition, and we created two parameters. We are taking two parameters a and b, and what's the work of this function? It prints a plus b. So we called the function, we wrote add, then parentheses, and we are giving input here. So this 3 will go to A and this 5 will go to B. So A and B here are parameters because they are called placeholders. But 3 and 5, they are called arguments. They are actual values which are passed to the function. So here 3 and 5 are arguments. So at the end, what will be the output? Output will be parameters versus arguments. A parameter is a placeholder name written in the function definition a, comma b and above. An argument is a real value supplied at the time of calling 3, comma 5 as shown above. Some key points. The number of arguments passed should normally match the number of parameters defined unless default or arg are used. Arguments passed by position in the same order as parameters are called positional arguments. Passing too few or too many positional arguments raises a type error. Now let's talk about next topic, which is return statement. The return statement is used in a function. It has its own function, like let's see in the definition. The return statement sends a value back into the function, the place where the function was called, and immediately ends the function execution. So here, as you can see, we are creating a function, defining a function square, and we are taking num as a parameter here and returning num into num, which means num square. Okay, so here we are not printing, the output will be returned. Okay, so here we can say, as we can see, result is equals to square 4. We are calling the function here, square is the function, and we are giving it a argument 4. So 4 will go, so 4 4 is 16. So here value 16 will be stored in result, and now the result will be printed. Okay, so if you don't want to print, you just if you just want to return a value or something, then you use return. Key points. A function without a return statement automatically returns none. As soon as function runs, the function exits. As soon as return runs, the function exits immediately. Any code written after it inside the same block is never executed. Return sends a value back. Print only displays a value. They are not the same thing. A function can return multiple value at once, separated by commas. Python packs them into a tuple automatically. So remember these key points. They can be asked in MCQs. Now what are default arguments? A default argument is a parameter that is given a default value in the function definition. If the caller does not supply a value for it, the default value is used automatically. So if by default the user doesn't give any arguments to the function, then the default argument will automatically be taken, so that it doesn't show any error. To handle that kind of error, we use default arguments. So you can see the example above. Here we have defined a function, the same function create, and we have created a parameter, and we have already assigned a value student to it. Okay, so if you don't write any, if you don't give anything, any argument in the function, then calling it, then it will just take the default value, and if you give any argument, then it will print that. Default arguments must be raised after all non-default parameters in the function definition. They make certain arguments optional when calling the function. The default value is evaluated only once when the function is defined. This matters for mutable defaults like list, which are common beginner pitfall. Now, what are keyword arguments? Keyword arguments are passed to a function using the parameter name is equals to value. Instead of relying on only on position, this lets you pass argument in any order. For example, here, now keyword arguments, basically you can give the argument in any order, like here parameters are written name and age. So if you want to give the parameters arguments in different order, then you can just write it like this, that name is Priya and age is 20. Okay, so in this way, here you could have given just 20 and Priya, but for the sake of convenience and clarity, that in which order, the order that you are giving the input is correct, that's why you are writing it this way. In this case, order doesn't matter here. Keyword arguments improve readability, especially for functions with many parameters. They can be mixed with positional arguments, but positional arguments must always come first in the call. Each parameter can only receive one value. You cannot supply both a positional and a keyword value for the same parameter. Now let's talk about variable length arguments. Here, as you can see, star args and double star kw args. Sometimes you don't know it in advance how many arguments will be passed to a function. Python allow this using star args, variable number of positional arguments and variable number of keyword arguments. So here this is the syntax, as you can see, define definition function name, then this and then this statement. So for variable number of arguments, like if you have before, we usually saw examples of at best two arguments like a and b, or any two name and age. But for variables, variable number, as many as argument is possible, that's when this is used. So you can see the example here. Okay. What are the key points? Star args collect extra positional arguments into a tuple, and keyword arguments, variable keyword arguments collects extra keyword arguments into a dictionary. So remember these things. These collects them in a tuple, and keyword arguments collect them in a dictionary. The names arg and kr are just convention. What matter is star and double star symbol. Order in the function signature matters. Normal parameter, then star args, then double star kw args. Useful when writing flexible function that should accept any number of inputs, like a custom print type function. Moving forward, let's talk about lambda function. Now, what are lambda functions? A lambda function is a small anonymous unnamed function defined in a single line using the lambda keyword, typically used for short simple operations. So here is the syntax. In this, you don't need def define or no need to name the function. You can write the whole function in a single line like this: lambda argument colon x. So example, square is equals to lambda x colon, argument here is x, argument will take the input or value, And what is the expression? X star x means x square basically. So print, you gave the input 5 as you gave the 5 as argument, 25. Here is the example of addition. Here lambda a comma b colon a plus b. So when you will call add, if you will call add and give them the argument a and b in it, or whatever number like 5 6 anything, then the output will be addition of both. Like here it has given 3 and 7 and the output is 10. Key points. A lambda function can take any number of arguments but must contain only a single expression. No statements, loops, or multiple lines. The expression result is automatically returned. There is no explicit return keyword. Lambda functions are commonly used as short throwaway functions passed to other functions like sorted, map, and filter. For anything more than a simple one-line operation, a regular definition function is clearer and preferred. So most of the time the regular function which is normally used, it is preferred, but sometimes you can use lambda if it is a small function, like a small line of code, then in, in this way by lambda function. Now what are recursions? Next topic is recursions. Recursion is when a function calls itself in order to solve a problem by breaking it down into smaller versions of the same problem. So recursion is basically a function calling itself again and again. Okay. So here you can see the example. Here we are finding the factorial of number n. So here in the function we wrote the first logic of the code, where if n is equal to 1, then we will simply return 1. Else if n is not equal to 1, then this is the formula, mathematical formula for factorial. So here we are calling, in this expression we are calling factorial inside a factorial function. So here the factorial is a function, so inside a function we are calling the same function. That's why it is a recursion. Print, if you print factorial 5, then it will print 120. Every recursive function needs a base case, a condition where the function stops calling itself and returns a value directly. Without a base case, for if it is never reached, the function will call itself forever, eventually causing a recursion error. Each recursive calls work on a smaller version of the original problem, moving it closer to the base case. Recursion is a powerful alternative to loop for problems that are naturally repetitive in structure, such as factorials, Fibonacci numbers, and tree traversal. So in these cases, recursions are mainly used. So on these topics, you could be asked questions in your examination. You write a code to find the Fibonacci numbers or factorials of a number. Now last topic of lecture number 7, theory part, which is scope, local and global. Scope refers to the region of program where a variable is recognized and can be accessed. Python variables can have local scope inside a function or global scope outside all functions accessible throughout the file. So scope generally means if you are creating a variable, okay, then where can you use that variable? Can that variable only be used inside a function or in loop or an if else statement or anything like that? or that variable is can be is usable in multiple function across the code, like that. So we can see the example here. Here we have created x is equals to 10, which is outside any statement, outside any function, loop, or conditional statement. So it is a global variable. Here we have created y is equals to 5. It is inside the function show. So it is a local variable because it is local to the function. Outside it, the Python doesn't know what does y stands for. The y will come in function only when you will call the show function. And here we are also calling the x inside the function, which is a global variable, so it can be used inside this function, but this y cannot be used outside of this one. So as you can see here, it will be printed. So first we called show. So what does show does? Show will print 10 and 5. Okay, because first line of code show, you are calling show. What does show does? It prints x, it prints y. X is 10, y is 5. So it prints 10 and 5. Then what you do? Then you print x. X is 10. So it gets printed, but then you print y separately, which is inside the function. But it says name error. Name y is not defined. Why it says that? Because it is inside a function. Scope is local. So Python doesn't find it defined outside the function for you to print it like that. Example, global keyword. Here count is equals to 0 is a global variable. You can use it in different functions like this. You can increment the count by 1 as you go. Keyword, key points. The key points to remember for scope of a function or a variable. A local variable is created inside a function and only exists while that function is running. It is destroyed once the function finishes. A global variable is defined outside any function, can be read from anywhere in the program, including inside functions. By default, a function can read a local variable but cannot modify it directly. Assigning it to it inside the function creates a new local variable instead. The global keyword must be used inside a function to explicitly modify a global variable rather than creating a local copy. I hope you are understanding all these points. Keeping variables local rather than global whenever possible avoids naming conflicts and make code easier to debug. So it is generally appreciated that we use more local variables and not much of the global variables, but where you have to use global variables when they are necessary. So according to the situation you have to decide whether you want to use local variable more or global. But certainly in college level, you are learning Python right now, then you don't have to dive that much. So the keywords in this unit, you should at least try to read the keywords once and recall them from time to time. They can be very useful in MCQs type of examination where MCQs are asked because they are on concept basis. There are a lot of MCQs in exams like if this happened then will there be an error, what is conceptual based. So these will help you. They are throughout they are for all the topics. Okay, so do read them once. And lecture number 7 functions is complete. I have covered all the theory points. In in the functions you don't need to focus on theory that much. Just I will advise you to just do coding questions on it, on functions, and you will get a hang of all the syntax of all of it. Okay, and and for that I have also I will also solve, I have also brought some problems for you to solve, which will help you in concept building and logic building. So we'll solve these questions. So Python practice question on functions. Question, so question number one, which is prime number checker. Write a function is prime. We will take an input number as a parameter here, and parameter that returns true if the number given is prime, otherwise returns false. If you remember, we have done this question previous lecture practice questions, okay, in which we did it by using a loop. Now in this case we are creating a function, okay, so function of it, so should be easy. So let's begin. I have already created a new file for lecture number 7. You can do the same. We are doing question number 1. Write a function is prime that returns true if a given number is prime, otherwise false. So what we did before, how do we define a function? We write def, then the name of the function. Name of the function according to the question is prime, is prime. Okay. And what is the parameter? Parameter was n. Now we have to write the content of the function. So what this function will do, we have to write that part. So first, well, what we did, negative numbers are not prime numbers, so we ruled out negative numbers first. So what we did, we wrote a conditional statement, if statement, where if the n which we will give to the function is less than or equal to 1, because you should know that 1 is not a prime number, okay, so it will return false. Now let's write the loop. We will write this will be the range, and after this we will return false, because here it is equal to 0. When the remainder will be 0, means that particular I is a factor of n, so it will not be a prime. And if it's not the case, then so here the function is created. Okay, the function, now function is created, but it will not give anything, right? If you run here, then nothing will happen, so you have to write other code as well, like name, enter a number. Now after all this, what we have to do, we have to As you can see, this function is not printing it. It is will just return the value false or true. So to give the user an output, what we have to do, we have to write in this way: is prime num. We are giving the input num to it. Print prime number. Print. So what, you might be confused what this statement of code does. It basically, it is a condition here. If is prime here, it basically says whether it is true or false. So if it is true, okay, if we give num and it is true, like after doing all of this, if we are calling the is prime function and is prime function's output is true, then this statement will run, because it will only give output true when the function, when the number you have given is prime number. So then it will print prime number, or else if it doesn't return true, it returns false, then print not a prime. Why do we have to write this code? We can simply here, if you want, we can change the code here, make it more simpler. Here we can eliminate this whole part. I'll show you, just let me first check, show you that the code is running perfectly, then we will improvise and we will write this code in a different manner, easier manner, little bit easier manner. Okay, not easier, I would not say easier, but in short and more readable manner. So here, if I give 1 as an input, then not a prime. If I give 2 as an input, not a prime. Files. Wait a second. So here, after we have written the code already, here the before the logic was wrong. Here now it will not be n plus 1, it will be this code right here. Okay. So after doing that, now if we enter 2, then it prints prime number. Now it is correct. Okay. So this is similarly, the code previously was written correct in the PDF. Okay, here the code is written correctly. I made the mistake on my part. Here it will be the code here. Range will be from 2 to int of 9 exponential 0.5 plus 1. After that, we can see the code is like that. Now we can change it a little bit, right? We can make it better. We can, if you want, we can just remove this part. After that, here instead of returning stuff, we can just print not prime. Here we can do that. Let me see, we can still for else prime. So if you are using this code, then I think for this syntax, I think use an now let's see, let's call the function. For calling the function, what we do, we just write is prime. um, so that's what we do. We have called the function. Let's run it. What is the error showing here? Okay, there was no error. That's printing twice. I found the bug here. Why it is printing not prime and prime again? Because here we forgot to include the loop in else section. Like if after running the if statement it is prints not prime, then again it prints, because here and because there is no separation between these two conditions, right? The first if runs, then again for runs for if you provide one as a value. So that's why, and it satisfies this value, and that's why it's print time. So that's why what we have to do here, we have to write else here. Now all the indentation are correct, and I think we have debugged the code correctly. Now we can see if I write 1, then it says not prime. For 2, it should say prime. Thing not prime. Why? So here now the code is correct. We run the code. 1 not prime. If you enter 2 prime. If you enter 3 prime. After that for 4 it should be not prime. Okay, so this is the whole code. Now these questions, I this is another way to do it. Like we have already did one question in this way, right? And this what does this function does? What according to question, we the question just had the function just had to give us output in return function, true or false. But I changed the function a little bit. Now it automatically prints it. As to before, we were printing it outside the function. Okay, so in this way you can do. Here the logic is easy to understand. Okay, so question number 1 is complete. Let's move on to question number 2. And don't worry, the questions on function usually take a lot of time in writing the correct logic and then debugging. Okay, so it's normal to spend 10-20 minutes on a question. After that you can look for the answer, or you can use AI to check the answers. So that first 10 to 20 minutes you should try to solve the questions on your own, then you can use external help. Now let's do question number 2. Count vowels. Write a function count vowels text that returns the total number of vowels a, e, I, o, u present in a given string. So we give input like this, and when it will return output how many vowels are there. Like in this programming there is o, a and I 3. So it returns the output 3. So we have to write this, we have to create a function like this. So we'll create count vowels was the this was the syntax already provided in the question. Let me recheck if I have written correctly. Yeah, count vowels text. We are we will define a variable called count that we will add the number of times it will be counted. We will loop through the string, then we will update the count how many vowels are there, and then at the end we'll print count. For I in text, or you might have studied the lower function in strings unit in the lecture in which I taught strings. Lower, what does lower does? It lowercase is convert the all the text into lowercase, so that because because Python is case based, right? It in Python it matters whether the input or the output is in uppercase or lowercase. So with this function we can convert all the cases. If the user has entered in uppercase, if user has given an input in uppercase, then we are generalizing basically. So it helps with that. We are using membership operator here in. So if I is in AIOU, then we will update count, and if not, return count. So the function is created. Now we have to just call the function and take input from the user. If you are returning values in a function, then remember outside that function you have to print the answer to the user with the external print state. Okay, you can choose to do anyway. Either you can directly get that answer printed from the function, but generally it is not done. It is return is used in most of the cases, but it's up to the coder's choice. How does he want to approach the It is possible in both ways, like I showed you earlier in question number one. Either you can directly print a prime, not prime directly from the function, or you can just take a return false and true and then write external print statements to print that particular answer. So our code is complete here. Let's check if it's correct. Let's clear all the pre. Let's clear terminal. Enter my name. Number of vowels 2. UA. Let's enter anything random. It will count 8. UIU 3 times here, then I 4 times, then U, then U, then IU. The code is correct. Question number 2 done. Let's comment it out. Shortcut for comment is control plus forward slash. You can select the lines, and if you do control plus forward slash, it will hash all of the selected lines automatically at once. Moving forward, let's move to question number 3, reverse number. This question is often asked in examination. For it is an easy concept of function. Okay, so sometimes not as a complete question, but it can be a concept in a question that it can be used, so you should know how to do it. Write a function reverse number that returns a reverse of a given integer without converting it into. So let's do that. You should know the logic of how to convert it without converting it into a string. Like, converting it into a string is an easy way. You can do it also that way, but in different languages you should also know this logic as well. So question number 3. So question number 3, you have to create a function whose name was reverse numbers, right? Reverse number will take num as parameter. While num is greater than 0, so we are basically finding the digit. If we divide it by 10, then reverse So this is the logic here. Okay, we will return the reverse here. So here in this while loop, this is the logic on how to reverse a number without converting it to a string. If you want to convert it into a string, it is very easy to understand. If you are facing any problems in understanding this logic, you can check, you can ask different AIs, chat GPTs, and it will explain you clearly what each number of line of code does and how it works. So we'll just take input and call the function. We'll print the reverse like this. You give in the argument number here. So code is written. We run the code. Let's see if the code is correct. Let's clear the terminal. Run the code. Let's start with easy. So here one is written. Again, let's do this. This is written. So what it basically does is, as you can see, we can take other examples here. And as you can see, it returns the reverse of. You can definitely note down this logic, how it is done. Question number 3 is also done. You can also find how to reverse an input or a number by converting it into a string. It will probably be easier to do and fast as well. So question number 3 is completed. Now let's see question number 4. Find second largest number. Write a function second largest number that accepts a list of integer and return the second largest. Okay, we have before we have I think done the largest number in loop or something. In this we have to find the second largest number. So I'll advise you to do these questions on your own. Okay, answers of these two questions are in the PDF here. As you can see here, if you face any problems, you can check these questions here. Here what we have done in the fourth question, we have defined the function. Okay, then we shorted the list, found the length like that. And you can definitely check out the logic here. You can create your first, try to do the question on your own. First try to create your own logic, then you can, if you are facing any problems, then you can upload your code on ChatGPT or Claude or any other AI and ask if what is wrong in your logic. Okay, then it will explain it. It is not fixed that you have to do all the questions in this way only. Okay, there are many ways to do a question. So first try on your own. So question number 4 is this. Then question number 5, what is question number 5? Password strength checker. Write a function check password that returns strong if the password satisfy all the following conditions. at least 8 characters long. Okay, so you can check this with length function. Contains at least one uppercase letter. Okay, contains at least one lowercase letter, contains at least one digit, otherwise return weak. Okay, so if you have given this input, then output will be this. So here you have to use many inbuilt function like is upper, which will tell if any character is uppercase, is lower if all the characters are lowercase. Okay, so is digit, does it contain a digit? Okay, like that. So and length, you have to check the length, and after that, if all these conditions are true, then return strong. If not, then return weak. So first you should try on your own. So these questions are of good level, above moderate I will say, and lengthy as well. So definitely try them on your own at first. So everyone, lecture number 7 is completed, which is functions, and we have also done 2-3 questions on that. Okay, we have also learned how we can do the question in different ways, different logic. Okay, same question. We also saw how to debug a question if you're facing some problems, some issues, some errors in the question. Then it can take time to debug. So, but you should definitely give at least 10 to 20 minutes on each question, so that you actually force your mind think on possible solutions of that question. Then after that, you can, if you still are unable to find the answer or still facing problems, then you can definitely use AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever is your preference. So definitely try these two questions here, question number 4 and question number 5 on your own. And you can, if you want, you can, I will advise to practice more and more question. In coding, basically doing questions and practicing coding is more important than lectures and stuff. So don't watch the lectures again and again. Just watch the lectures and theory, or go through the PDF which I will provide in this for once, and then start solving the problems. You can either, there are many resources where you can get the problems. Easiest one would be to directly ask ChatGPT or any AI Claude for give me 10 moderate questions, 10 hard questions, conceptual questions, logic building questions like that. Or if you are at a basic level, then just write that I have just learned Python theory, give me concept building questions or basic questions, which will just help me conceptualize the syntax and stuff. So that's how you can do it. Thank you everyone for watching the lecture. We'll meet again in the next lecture number 8. Thank you for watching.